companies and that you're not planning to leave day after tomorrow, because they won't hire you if they think that you're going to leave next week. So. And then comes character and work experience also. But you really, when we go in to look at the cover letter later, we can go in and see how you can also talk about motivation. But if you follow the companies that you're interested in, if you follow them on social media, for example, on Instagram, you will kind of get an idea of what's their workplace culture like also. I'll tell you one example of a recruitment person. She works for academic work. She said that she had a few CVs in front of her, and they were all kind of recent graduates, and they were all good. You know, they could all do the job. So who do you pick? And this was actually, I think, for her own team. And she was thinking, okay, so she was looking at hobbies on the CV. And she noticed that one applicant mentioned paddling. And she said, I like paddling. She likes paddling. We've got something in common. She said that, of course, they were all qualified, but recruiters are also people. Sometimes it can be down to something really, really tiny. So don't withhold any information. Talk also don't leave out your hobbies or anything that tells about your personality, because it's important to find out also who you are, not just about your substance, who you are and why you want this job. As a critical social scientist, I'm always also critical about statistics. And I actually don't believe in this. I think these affect, but people just don't see. Because we all know as well that there is a lot of prejudice in this society. Unfortunately, I hate to say that, but that's a fact. But I do believe in these top ones, and that's why I'm showing this. We need to show motivation and personality. So basically, this is what we need to do before we even start drafting the letters. We need to know who we are, what are your strengths, what's your core substance knowledge, what motivates you every day, what's your wishes for working life. Do you like flexible working hours? Do you like the work-life balance that's so big in this country? Do you like the fixed salary, or what makes you happy in working life? It's good if you actually state that to yourself, because it might come up in an interview too. Values. It just came up. The recruiters also want to know about values. Because only after we have done this kind of mapping of our own competencies, we can mirror it to the opportunity awareness that, okay, so what's out there for me? Where can I find a job with my skills? Where would I fit in? And one good way of researching the labor market also and networking at the same time is to do information interviews. I don't know if you've heard of this. If you find somebody, a person, who's doing the job basically that you want, that you're interested in, that's my ideal job, then contact this person, especially if he or she is an alumni. And we'll check in LinkedIn later how you can find the alumni. Would you like to go for a coffee with me? I would like to interview you about your job. Usually people say yes, because people like to speak about their jobs. Even in Finland, people like to speak about their jobs. Then you ask questions like, of course, how did you end up in this job position and so forth. But what do you do every single day? What are your concrete work tasks? What is your typical working week like? And what skills do you need to do your job? What are the most important skills according to you? And if you could study something today that would complement your skills, what would it be? After this, you will have an idea of whether actually you would like this kind of job or not. If not, that's a result in itself. But if you think that, yeah, I still want this job, then now you have the perfect ingredients for your job application letter. Because now you know in depth what the work is all about, the description, so you can start linking your own competencies to this job, and then you have a much better application basis compared to people who don't know this. And also your networking, you can tell this person, oh, this sounds really great, I would be so happy to be able to do this. And do you know, who do you work with? Who is in your network? Who do you deal with every day? Do you know of anybody maybe who's looking for somebody? Because as we will see, jobs in Finland go a lot through networks. Then someone might say, yes, actually, I know that after, in 2 months' time, my colleague is going on maternity or paternity leave. There's going to be an opening there. And then you might be the perfect candidate for that. Or something might come up later. But I can't, if I'm the person you're interviewing, I can't offer you the information if I don't know that you want it. So you need to spread the message, who you are and what you want, so that you can also be approached. It takes a lot of effort, but that's just how it is. And because if you don't speak Finnish, it takes extra effort, as you probably know. But only after you've done this kind of linking, then you can start writing your CV and motivation letter. Now, this is one way how to categorize, because your knowledge. If you don't know how to verbalize your competences then for your letter, and this is one way of maybe trying to do it. You can make a list or a mind map of your substance and field specific competencies. What have you studied during your BA, MA, or doctorate? What's the core there? And also, what have you done through your hobbies, work experience? And make a list of words, because that's what you need. You need to have lots of different kinds of verbs and words that describe your competence. Then you can also analyze your transferable academic skills, generic skills, and self-leadership. Now, we also do workshops on just how to find out what our competencies are, but we don't have space to do that today here. But I would just like to give you a short sort of insight in how you can do this yourself. But remember, if you start listing your generic skills, for example, problem solving, I'm good at problem solving, I'm happy to work in a team, but I'm also very good at working on my own. Everybody says that. So don't just say that in your motivation letter, you need to open it up, be more concrete. In what way are you good at problem solving? And one strategy for doing this is called CAR statement. Competency, actions, results. So if you take problem solving as one skill, open it up. In what way are you a good problem solver? Think about from your working life or from a situation in your studies where you had to solve a problem. What problem was it? What did you do? What was your role in solving that problem? What was the result? Then it tells me something about what kind of problem solver you are. If you open it up, like in your motivation letter, for example. If it says if you're applying to an announcement to a job vacancy, and there are some criteria, then you need to answer to this criteria, but you need to open it up like this, not just a list of. If I can make myself clear. So this is just one technique of how we can do it. And it's good to have written down a few examples. So as you think of them, write them down somewhere. So that you got them ready, you have chewed on them already. Because if we've done it once, then they're there in your head. Okay.
Question.
Yes.
So is this important or significant to write it in the cover letter or the motivational letter, or like is it more like a practice to speak about it in the interview itself? Both.
Both, I would say. And we're going to come to that soon when we talk about the letter. But I would say both. Then a couple of words about the hidden labor market. Sitra did this survey in 2016. They asked 5,000 Finns how they got the job they are in right now. 71% said through networks. different kinds of networks, but basically not by answering an ad somewhere. So if you just target, if you're looking for a job and if you just target basically the open vacancies, then you're just sort of swimming on top there. You need to dive down to find more jobs, because that's where they all are, below the surface. Of course, for example, municipalities and official authorities, they have to announce their job vacancies. But small companies, some companies, they don't, because some find it, they just don't have the time. They just don't have the money to do recruitment. They want people to approach them, because then they know that if you approach my company, I know that you're interested in it because you found me, right? So I'll speak to you and see what can happen. So, and also because sometimes vacancies arise very quickly. Somebody might have an accident or somebody's leaving, and people come and go all the time in working life, of course. And then I might ask, okay, she's just left, I need somebody else ASAP. Then I will ask, if you all work for me, and I will say, okay, Tina left last week, I need somebody to replace her. Do you know of anybody? Because I trust you, so I trust your judgment. If you're gonna recommend me somebody, and you might say, oh yeah, I know somebody. Okay, bring him in for an interview. So this is how it kind of works, if I just sort of make it a little bit simpler, but still. So, but if you spread the word in the networks that you're looking for something and in what field, then the information is out there. Then I added this, I don't know if anybody attended, maybe we had a how to find a job in Finland session a few weeks ago in the city center, and then I had these slides, and I thought I'll include them here. You'll get this presentation afterwards anyway, but this is a list of companies that have employed international students, and they have used our subsidy that we pay employers for a traineeship. So these companies have hired people who do not speak Finnish. So it is possible. And of course, we only know where our students do traineeships because of the subsidy. We don't know of those that don't need the subsidy that can pay a normal wage to the students. This is only if companies can't pay a 3-month wage, the university can pay a subsidy towards it. And I'll leave this here as well, you can have a look at this later. This is information on recruitment channels and Facebook pages, and I'm sure you could also maybe even add to this list from your own personal experiences. You have worked here in Finland, how did you find that job? Connection?
As for example, in my case, I get university email, sometimes comes some sorts of link. So in my university email, there was coming this link from Unitori.
Okay.
So one student just recommend any forestry student can have the opportunity. So I applied and I got from there.
Good.
But of course, this guy, his name is Helena Poutom, and then they asked Helena that what kind of girl she is, and then of course Helena says yes, she is
Okay.
good and stuff like this.
It's good that if you have a Finnish reference on your CV, yes. it
Yes,
could be
but
a-
I didn't have this like any references, but the Helena was working there and she gave the links in university email.
Okay, yes.
And I applied, and then Helena, they just asked Helena there, but do you know this guy?
Yeah.
So it works quite well.
I have a comment. So, what do you think, like, how ethical this is, like, about this, recommendation? Maybe there are like lots of potential, like students or like job seeker who are looking for a job. They don't have the network, so they are looking for the 10%. This particular, like, what is the open in the market.
Mhm.
So how ethical that they are like depriving the getting the job, maybe. They will maybe get this networking after maybe long time or something, but in the right time, maybe he or she might be looking hardly or might be frustrated because not getting the job, because he or she has the only option of like this opening or vacancy which is in the
Yes.
paper or like in the internet.
Of course, it's hard then, and of course you need to start working on your network straight away. Whether you arrive in Finland or
For me, like, there shouldn't be any question of ethics, because, I mean, we are making a connection, that doesn't mean that you are breaking the law of ethics. So it's your quality that you make the connection, so you have that talent.
And it's not easy. I mean, many times when I speak about networking to students, it's hard because people also think it's, why do I have to go and sell myself there? And I don't find it natural to go out and talk about myself, branding myself. And yes, it's not easy, but the more we do it, the more easier it will become. And that's why we have also different kinds of workshops offered at the different universities, so where you can practice also is how you talk about yourself. But you have to just start working on the networks. And I also know that many have Facebook groups that are connected to your own, for example, people from your own country. So I'm sure that there is a Facebook group for Bangladeshi in Finland, for example. And that's also maybe where some information passes about job opportunities. And here you can find this, and here you can find that. That's a good way to start, at least.
And also, like, in Helsinki, there is a lot of meetup cafes, so if you don't know that, I myself still practice like public speaking in some cafes, so you can also join and talk with other people. That is also like a good place for connection, but you have to give time. I myself manage still time to go there and talk with the people, so different backgrounds people, different companies.
And I think actually sometimes it's better to speak to people who are not in your field, because only then you really practice how to talk about your competencies to make it intelligible to others who are not in your field. Because it's so easy to speak to somebody from your own field. This we talked about already. We had a nice presentation from Helsinki Film Company. And then of course there is also the other startups. And I mentioned two here that are based, well, I can't remember actually where they are all based, but Amplify, they actually match the job seeker with startup jobs. They have a place where you can fill in your information online, and then there's a matching going on. And the Shortcut, there's a team missing. Shortcut offers training also in fundamental tech skills. So actually you don't have to have any tech skills when you go in there, they train you. And then there's some employment opportunities. So follow these if you are interested also. Right, so let's talk a little bit about the cover letter then. Of course, there are many ways of doing it, but let's just talk about the fundamentals. And I hope that you never ever copy-paste any parts, please, because it shows.
Yes, that's what we do most of the time, just go into the Google and make a template.
I know that you tailor the beginning and then you keep some bits and then you copy-paste, but somehow you have to be quite good at it for it not to show. I read quite a lot of motivation letters every week that we go through with the students in individual counseling sessions, and it's just, the more you read, the more you sort of think, okay, you have to customize. And of course, depending on now if you are replying to a vacancy, or if you're approaching an employer without there being a vacancy, there's a difference there. If you are approaching an employer without there's a vacancy, then you have to do more work, because you have to do more research. You really have to talk about why you're approaching them and why should they hire you when they haven't said that they have a need for it. So you have to really make a case for yourself. But if you're answering to a vacancy, then you really need to answer it too. Sometimes if you look at the requirements, the criteria, and you look at the letter, you think, well, this person has gone on a tangent here and it's not actually answering that. And maybe at this point my comment is, please don't repeat the CV. Because the CV is there as a document to talk about what you have done in the past, and it's like a comprised version of your achievements and your competences in the past. This letter is about the present. How am I going to use these skills in your company, and what are my ideas for the future? If you repeat the CV, that's kind of waste of space, because you have a very restricted space where you can talk about yourself. If you talk about the same things twice, of course there's going to be some repetition, but more so you need to talk about the future vision here. The CV is next to this, but how does this complement the CV? We're going to have a look at this in a minute. We'll be on the website. Find out, before you start writing, do your research on the employer. Link social media, do you know anybody who works there, and so forth. How badly do you want this job? Really badly? Do more research. So, many young students start their motivation letter by saying, I'm a 20-year-old social science student. That's maybe not the way to start a letter, because of course the age doesn't really matter here, and I can find that out anyway. You need to catch my attention. I'm again going to use myself as the example recruiter here. If I read a lot of these, how can you catch my attention from the beginning? Now, if we talk about the research you've done again, about yourself, what's your main competencies, what does the employer want? And I have done the links. I have found the strongest links that connect us. Now, if we have, let's say, if you found two brilliant ways, this is what's gonna, nail it for you. I will start with one really strong beginning, that I'm applying for this job because, bam, one strong link there. I'm a perfect fit because, and show some personality too. Remember, motivation, personality. Yeah, and why this position? And many times also, people say that, okay, if I'm applying for a position of a sustainability coordinator, let's say, and you only talk about that position, but not once in the whole letter mention the organization. It's easy to do, it's easy to forget. If it's, for example, the University of Helsinki, that I now represent, I'm the recruiter, I would like to see my company mentioned or my organization mentioned. Because you're also going to be working for that organization. So the values of the organization, how does that fit together with mine? I'd like to work for the university because we share these and these values. You're not just applying for the position, you're also applying to the organization. So you need to explain both. Yes?
I got a question, especially about the first part.
Yes.
Because I often try to apply for like creative jobs.
Yes.
And try to like show it, especially by the first paragraph. And most of them use like quotes or like issues that say that are like not necessarily attached to like a certain job, but kind of to the field.
Yes?
And I kind of prefer what kind of problem I see and how I want to solve it by like applying for the job, for example. I don't know, like some people, like a friend of mine, she works as a recruiter for eBay, she says that's all fine. But I always never get actually any like feedback from companies. And a lot of like another friend of mine, she's also recruiting, she said like, yeah, even like people or HR says they want to have something like that, they most often go for like the general like common ones.
Yes, of course, there's no answer to this, because of course people are different. People look differently at motivation letters and so forth. Depends on how creative you are trying to be and how well does it link to that job. So it's a fine line, especially in the creative industry.
But you don't say it's generally bad to like try it out.
I would again encourage something that shows personality and motivation. And if that's how you see it, then you know. But it's a tricky one, of course. I can't say exactly what you should write there. But just also remember to mention why you want this organization. Then comes the key skills. And now if you have a few of those achievement stories, that would be good. And here, if you now start talking about why you fit in, because in 2015 you did this, and in 2012 you did this, and because in 1997 you did this, that's repeating the CV. You don't have to mention that. Just take out the competence, what you did rather, kind of cut out the details.
An example, like, can you please give an example?
Yes.
How can I express them?
Basically, if you write out a sentence where you say, in 2015 when I was working for UNICEF, I created a network of, like, but I can also just make it shorter and say that you are good at creating networks, that you have been part of, you created a network of 50 people, and your role in this was, okay, this sounds very clumsy now because I haven't thought about it, but my point is that don't always repeat all the years from the CV and all this sort of like these kinds of details. Just talk about the task at hand rather than
Like output.
yes, the output. Exactly. And use verbs.
Like in CV, say I'm selling myself. So some people say that you can exaggerate, like say saying we don't know. It is a good thing or not? Like you know, some say like I don't have the skill of something,
Mhm.
but I put in the CV that I have this. Or like some people say with that, like you should sell yourself. You should say more and more. So,
Is it a good thing to say you know something
it's like,
whether you
I think,
don't?
and like I'm just asking, like is it a positive thing or negative thing? Like
From a Finnish perspective, coming
I
from
get
a
it from a
country where
Finnish
honesty
person,
is
so-
a virtue, I would say no.
I got it from a Finnish person, so I don't know who,
Yeah.
like, which person it is. So
If you're in Finland and if you're applying for a job in Finland and you don't,
Anteeksi.
yeah,
Me oltais tulossa hakea tää rata pois tästä, niin haetaanko sitten?
nyt
Joo.
Anteeksi, voisitko tulla 3 jälkeen?
Ei, niin meillä on nyt kuljetus.
Okei.
Me yritetään olla hiljaa, jos me vaan saadaan tästä kantaa.
tarvitseeko miten paljon tilaa?
Ei tarvita, kun vaan nostellaan tuosta niin tästä.
Okay, so they need to dismantle the stage.
Joo.
But,
Mut me yritetään olla äänissä.
okay, we'll try to
Also,
ignore
after
you then.
that, also,
Joo.
is it possible to do not disturbing and taking all this off from here?
Yeah, we try to be quiet, but our ride is waiting.
When you are walking again and again, then will disturb.
That's how it is now. Oh, sorry.
Okay, well, just have to make do. What was I talking about? I was talking about honesty.
Yeah.
That, yeah, if there's a skill that's mentioned in your vacancy note, that you think, okay, I don't have that and I don't have that, but I really wanna apply, go for it. Because they are looking for the ideal candidate. And very rarely you can find somebody who is perfect, who answers every criteria. So just go for it anyway, because you might have something else that will actually take up, override this. And if you think, how are you gonna approach this matter by the lacking skills, is that you can say that you're always really willing to learn new things, and these are the skills I will be prioritizing to learn now. Don't say you can do something. Yeah, it depends on the skill, of course. If it's a soft skill or something like that you can work on very quickly, but if it's like a technical skill or something, then it's better to be honest. Then comes the part where you can talk about yourself a little bit. What are you like as a person? What is your work style? If you have ever received any, pitäisikö teidän siirtää toi vaatenauha pois? If you have got feedback from your previous employers in the written format, for example, then you can use a couple of sentences from there. Have a look at your previous references. You can take out sentences and put in here. My previous employer said this about me, or my colleagues have said this about me. I'm usually described as being a problem solver, as the person who is always happy in the office, or something like this, from different perspectives. And again, if you say that you are happy to work in a team but also independently, we need to open it up. We need to say how that, what is your most important achievement from individual work so far in your career? What have you done on your own that you're really proud of? Mention it. What is a big achievement that you have done as part of a team? Mention it. And what was your role in it? That tells me so much more about you and about your capabilities as an employee. Yes?
Is a cover letter and motivational letter.
It's the same thing. Thank you.
The format would be the same.
Sorry?
The same format, like 1 page, or it can be.
One page. One page. And then remember how I said before that you should have at least 2 strong links between you and the employer, and you start off with in the beginning with one strong thing. Many times things fade towards the end when I read the letters. You can start off really well, but then it starts fading, and then it's like, oh, maybe you'll phone me later. So be sure that you also finish off strongly. At the end, you will use your second strong link that connects you to the employer. That will keep my interest up as a reader, and I would want to pick up the phone after this to phone you for an interview. What's the last sort of important thing that you want to tell me? And then you will say that I am more than happy to come in and talk to you in person. Show your motivation at the end. What are your thoughts about this? So personality can show, definitely. But somehow if you copy paste, because you always have a different tone of voice for each employer that you approach, and that shows. So just rewrite a little bit so that it flows nicely. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I kind of think it's hard to like describe all the abilities that are required. Because
Yes.
there are often like, I don't know, 10
Good.
things that you should like resources, whatever. I don't really know which one to pick because you can't describe all of them in one.
No, too much information is too much information. You need to be clear and concise. You need to pick out let's say, the 3 most important ones. If there's a list in the vacancy,
Yeah.
then there's your list. That's what you have to do.
But most of them are like a lot. And I think we should be precisely how should we like pick one of those.
Well, then you just have to use your own judgment and decide, okay, which of these 10 skills do I use now for this position? What you can also do constantly, even if you're not job hunting, keep a lookout on vacancies anyway to see what are the requirements for other similar positions in other companies so that you keep the finger on the pulse of what's going on in your field. Yeah.
What do you think about like making the cover letter or the motivation letter like story, like in a way that has like a coherence between the paragraphs?
Yes.
Because you said that you have like 1 or 2 very strong points that link you to the company. Start off with the first one and the second one. Like, what do you think about making it as in the first paragraph, starting just as in, just trying to introduce yourself, like, not in a very, like, typical sort of way, like, I'm 20 years old, this, no, but like, in a more interesting way, I'm this person, looking for, like, just recently graduated or something,
Yes.
looking for this, doing this. And then in the second paragraph, you start off as like, why you were interested in this,
Yes.
and then insert your, like links that you have, and then in sort of the third paragraph, tell more about your own personality type of thing, and then in the final, you end off with like, yeah, you'll be happy to contact them for an interview. Like, what do you think of this type of structure?
Yes. I think sounds good. I think it sounds logical. As long as you get your points across why they should hire you, why you're a good fit for this company. I think. Yes.
Yeah, because I was just thinking that maybe because as you know, recruiters have probably like hundreds of these, that they have to go through.
Yes?
And it's quite easy to lose interest in
Yes.
like some of it.
Sure, it's
So-
good to have a variation of it, yes.
Mhm.
And there are of course many different variants of them, but absolutely. What was I going to say? Yeah, we'll come back. If we then move on to the CV. Depends on where you're applying. Many times now you have to upload your CV details into a database. They don't even need your CV. But let's pretend now that you need to have your CV anyway in order. And it depends if you're sending your documents to a small company who are not usually recruiting, or if you're sending it to a big company that really recruits a lot. It's a big difference. If you send to a company that recruits quite a big volume, then they don't spend very much time on your document. So you have to really sort of make an impression quite quickly. And they don't have many seconds to make an impression of you. Some people read the motivation letter or cover letter first, some people read the CV first. So both have to be, of course, very good. You have to tell the same story. Many people also think that you don't have to customize the CV, but actually you can customize it. For each vacancy, you can customize it. Example. I know that there are different kinds of CVs, visual CVs in circulation. A lot of students still use, let's say, a more old-fashioned format, which is Times New Roman font 12. Yeah? And yes, that's okay, and especially for certain jobs, if you maybe want to be a little bit more conservative. But more and more people use visual CVs. And in comparison, if you compare this to the more traditional one, then which one do you think looks nicer in the recruiter's eye?
Second.
So you can do it in so many different ways. And again, if you're in the creative industry, you can be more creative because this is your calling card. What do you want people think when they read it? If you are not in the creative industry, you can use a template like this. If you can Google creative CV, visual CV, and you will find lots of different ideas. You can even do this with a Word document. You don't even need a template. Sometimes you have to pay for these templates. Sometimes they're for free. In Canva, there are some free ones, but you can also do stuff on Word. And in Finland, you always get the question is that, do I attach a photograph? And my answer to this is usually you do what you like because this is your calling card. But many people who are in recruiting, they say that they prefer a photo because then they will remember you better. These are the words they use. So I would recommend that you do use a photo. You don't have to. It's up to you. And of course, if you apply for a job in the UK or in the US, the picture is an absolute no-no. But here, you would still prefer to have a photo.
Why is that? Like, why is it that you know?
Because I think especially the ethnic profiling reasons, you're not supposed to give up any sort of idea of your background, or you don't have more info.
Does it create any biasness?
Sorry?
Using photo create biasness?
Yes, yes. And again, in Finland, I think Helsinki and Espoo, the city have had some recruitments now where they actually remove everything, all the personal details, all the photographs. This is coming, but still, but you don't have to, it's up to you. More and more we also use some kind of profile text up the top. This is what we start with. 4, 5, 6 lines where you summarize your competencies, thinking about this that you're applying for now. What do you want to take out of your history? And also, what's in your future? if you haven't said it in your motivation letter, then you should say it here that, okay, this is what I have, but this is where I'm going in the future, because recruiters want to know, or a company, if I'm gonna recruit you, it's quite a big decision for me. It's an investment. So I want to know where you're headed. What are you interested in? What do you want to do now? If I hire you, so will you want to become a specialist in which area? What are your, because we always have to learn more, we have to develop our competencies. In which direction do you want to develop your competencies? Mention it somewhere. Then you can choose whether you put education or work experience first. If you're a recent graduate with not so much work experience, you might want to mention your university first. But if you have a lot of work experience in your field, you might want to start with that. As long as then, whichever you start with, you list in chronological order. Most recent first. I've seen also people who start talking about their work experience with their oldest first. And that kind of is a bit confusing because it might take me 10 years back. So start with the most recent. Language skills, IT skills, and that's the good thing about the visual CV, that you can sort of get much more information here. You can have like these boxes here with skills. If you want to highlight something for them, now here you can have your list of 10 skills. If you don't want to list them all in your motivation letter, but you can have them here. Or if there's something specific that this employer wants, and you know that you have them, you can highlight them there. My special competence, and then you highlight them. And the CV should be 1 page or 2, but not 1.5. Because 1.5 seems that it's kind of, I've got nothing more to say. This much blunt. So either you squeeze it into 1 or then 2, but no more than that.
One question.
Yeah.
Is there skills has to be separated into IT skills and one skills?
Yeah, you can have them, yeah. But if you have basic IT skills, maybe you just can integrate into your normal skills. But if you have enough IT skills, then you can highlight them especially. Voluntary work, positions of trust, even if you were taking care of the finances of your student union or something, that's a position of trust. Hobbies, if you have space for them, you can put them in there. Yeah.
Do you think they're required? Because as you mentioned before about is it actually picked specifically based on the hobbies?
So of course, this is one example only, but I think that if personality really does affect the recruitment decision, and I think this is one way of showing my personality by talking about what I do in my spare time. And it's also a way to show the employer how maybe I deal with stress, that work is not the only thing in my life. I also like to go jogging and I like to read and cook. Even if there are things like that. Still.
But do you think it depends on the position? Because for example, in all the politics, I don't think hobbies would be something that should be.
Again, you have to use your own judgment. What do you want to highlight? If you think it's not relevant, then don't put it in. There are so many different cases here, it's difficult to speak to. So this is, because there are no sort of facts that are always true here. Always have to use our own judgment. References, you can have them in there. Sometimes it makes the life of the recruiter easier. If I'm in a rush, I have 2 candidates. References are mentioned here, but not here. To get this person's references, I have to contact this person. I might have to wait for a few days before I can phone up the references. So, I'm busy. But here the references are here, I'll phone them up immediately. Done. So, it's better to have them, I think.
A reference is really something like something that should be included like in the. Like I want to ask, is that something that the recruiter considers in the first round of selection? Because normally, yeah, it's not because normally you like you generally think that once a certain candidate has passed certain steps, then you like, think about
Usually
it.
that's the case, that of course, to get to an interview, if you write these documents because you want to get to an interview. That's kind of the first stage. And at the interview, of course, and if you pass that stage, people start checking on your references. So that's what I'm saying, it's not necessary to have them there, but sometimes it could be beneficial, so if you have space for them,
Mhm.
it's a good thing to put in. If you choose between having 1.5 page or 2 pages, if you think about filling stuff, then it's a good filler. Yes?
How do you mean by the positions of trust?
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, is it necessary to put like this our Twitter account in our CV?
If I would like to know what you toot out there in social media. And if you tweet about professional things, I might be interested to see what you have to say in your Twitter profile. What kind of things do you talk about? I might be interested in that. But if you wanted to, if you use personal things, if you only tweet about personal things, then I might leave it out. But if it kind of supports your professional identity, I think it's a good thing because it only adds to your credibility.
Is there any good references, like whom should I put as a reference? Is there anything?
Well, if you're job hunting in Finland, it's always good to have somebody from here, from the local area, because it's always somehow easier to call a local person. Doesn't always have to be a Finn, of course, but somebody in the country. So if you don't know anybody else, you can always use somebody from your university, professor, lecturer, somebody who knows you. Many times students use their academic stuff.
Well, a good reference. Do you need to mention it then? How we were connected?
Yes, I would put sort of the name, and then underneath I would say that professor in my program or my boss from this. So just short, yeah, how you know each other, yeah.
Sorry, I haven't got that. Like positions of trust.
Yes, sorry. Positions of trust. Again, if you've done something in a student union, or in, for example, this is a position of trust for you, what you're doing, something that you don't get paid for, but you are doing it for the well-being of others. That this is a trusted position. Different kind of organizations that you can be a secretary of some sort, you can be the financial controller or examples of that, or in hobby groups.
It's like an extracurricular activity.
Yes. So remember, the most important thing here is that it's clear and it's readable. Not too much information either. Sometimes if we have worked as a project assistant or project coordinator, we only write University of Helsinki project coordinator for 3 months. Project coordinator can mean anything really. And if you don't explain to me exactly what you did and what your responsibilities were, then I'm going to start making things up. And you don't want to give me the power to start making things up about what you did. So you need to tell me. So please be sure that when you are describing your work experience, that you actually, few lines under each one, what did you do? Use verbs. I coordinated the network, I did various things. But clear. And please, no typos. You can be on the last run up to a job and then there's a typo somewhere, you'll lose it. So you will lose the process, you will not be considered anymore. So, and when we are working on these documents, you know what it's like. You get blind for your own text. You don't see the typos. So please always let somebody else read through both your motivation letter and your CV before you send it. Because that can really also make a massive difference, that you can spot that one typo. And yeah, use PDFs, of course, always, when you send them.
Those who are fresh graduates, just graduated, they don't have much work experience, they have done courses in the university. So is it okay for the courses here?
Absolutely. I would actually, thanks for saying that. I would absolutely lift up something. If you've done a course that very much corresponds to the job you're looking for, then mention it. Yes. Yes. If you're approaching an employer without a vacancy, it's a good idea to first phone them up and ask whether they accept open applications. Because some might say yes, go ahead, you can send it, and this is who you send it to, because you need a person's name. They might also say, no, we don't accept open applications because we organize we recruit sort of more in an organized fashion. And if you then send your papers and they don't accept it, you've done all the work for nothing. So please check first, and also you need the name because you need to then phone up. If you haven't heard anything in a week, phone them up. It doesn't mean, because people don't phone you back immediately, doesn't mean that they will discard your application straight away. It could mean that they are just so busy. And your paper is under here. And I've had so many things to deal with today, I just haven't had the time to look at your application. But if you kind of give me a reminder, oh, by the way, I sent you my application last week, have you had a time to look at it? It's a friendly reminder, I won't mind. So please remember that as well.
Is it better to text or email or?
You can email. Okay. So now we have done a very rushed tour through the cover letter and CV. And I was still going to talk a little bit about LinkedIn. We still have some time here. Unless you have something. Yes?
If someone is short name, rather than like the formal name maybe longer, if he is short name. So in the CV or cover letter, it should be the short one or the longer one?
I think maybe there needs to be both, in a way, because otherwise it will be confusing.
Then how can you read it?
Well, we need to see an example.
For example, John Joe, you might have some suffix and prefixes there. So why did he should write after the initial name and then the long name? Is it
You can do that.
or in the bracket?
In the brackets would work as well. But because in Finland you don't really have that kind of system. You would just write the name you have. You wouldn't use any short version. So I think it is not confusing either. So I would use maybe the name that's in your passport. Even if it's long. But then you can maybe write there underneath that. A short version is this. Just make it clear, but mention it both. Is there anything that you who have been employed in Finland, who have been working, is there anything you would like to share that with regards to this process that you think would be valuable for everybody else to hear? Good advice.
Yeah, for me, I can share the recruiting process. So I was a PhD student here and worked in a project financed by Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry. And then when Ministry financed a project, they give 70% money and then they told that you have to manage 30% from the outside. So why are you getting? And we started to hunt it in the outside and we present our research to some other companies, and then Hankia has a fit division and they agreed that okay, this project messes with us, so we will finance it 30%. Then we started to work, and then I was fortunate enough to work with the professor that he was engaging me all the time that you can do this and you can go to the ministry and present the idea. And at the same time you can go to the company and also present the idea. And always during these 4 or 5 years, whenever I'm giving a present, the director of the company was sitting always in front of me, watching me very closely and so on. And whenever I'm finishing my talk, he was coming to me and talking with me all the time. And I had a very good friendship with him, and then at some point that I was telling that, well, I'll finish my PhD soon, and so if in the ministry or in a company, if you have guys some job or whatever, then you can let me know, I can consider or think about it. Then the guy was, one day after finishing my presentation, and he was talking to me and shaking my hand, and so, and I used to know, and he become very friend of me by this time, and he's the director of Ankia. He was asking me that you have a position, so if you want to work, and then I had an informal interview, and they proposed me that we will bring you to USA to give a talk there. If you can manage the customer, then we will think about it. So they took me to USA, and then I was there and gave a presentation, and the customer was very much pleased, and the thing I did it here in university, I presented the same thing in the USA. It was a bit easier for me and convince the people. And that sounds like they impressed, and they after that when I came back, and they asked me, okay, you were fast, so now we go for the formal appointment and so on. Then I ended up in the Ankia.
There are many different routes to employment. Thank you for sharing that story. Also, one thing before we move on to social media is that I have realized recently that quite a few of my colleagues who have applied for jobs vacancies, they have applied, they went to the interview, and they have been told afterwards that no, that you didn't exactly fit this, but they were contacted like 2 months later to say, now we have a job that fits your profile, are you still available? So also applying for jobs is a way of networking. Even though you don't know that, or you might be doubting that you might not be the person for this, go ahead anyway, you've got nothing to lose. Just a little bit of time to draft the documents. Go for it, and if you can get to an interview, at least you're then telling them that you exist and what you want to do. So you never know how the recruitment process will go.
A little different issue, like, what do you think about our name? Does it actually affect in the recruitment process?
Yeah.
I would like to say no, but there are some studies done in social psychological studies that say that yes.
Yeah.
If I'm not wrong, like I saw like some maybe Harvard some survey, they actually found out like, okay, yeah, in the majority case, we are rejected because of our ID surname or something. So
But it still is controversial, because I have seen also this US, this black name and white name. And there have been some studies, but it says it has some effect, and then many states it doesn't.
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But if you want to again demonstrate somehow that your commitment to Finland, what would be a good way of demonstrating in your
Speaking Finnish,
in your letters?
I think like it will be.
Yeah. Or even if you don't, in your motivation, and why don't you just start off with the first sentences in Finnish? You can all manage that with Google Translate at least. Hei, minun nimeni on.
But then it remains with English.
But then, yes, of course, and then you switch to English, but you do your first introduction in Finnish.
So you mean that I can like write in the cover letter like first line in Finnish and then continue with the English?
And then you can say that after this introduction in Finnish, I will not continue in English, because that is not my language, but I'm learning Finnish. Learning Finnish. That's one way of standing out, I think, from other international applicants. If you make the effort, I'm sure you've noticed that if you make an effort in Finland to speak Finnish, Finns appreciate it. So use that also in your job hunt.
It's part of cultural integration, so you have to anyhow learn. Otherwise, you have to teach the culture. They will understand that you are not that motivated to stay in Finland like that.
So be brave about that. Doesn't matter if you don't write it perfectly, but it's the effort.
Anyway, when we write motivation to in Finnish, it's very simple. So is it better to use it in English and translate? So Google Translate.
No.
I would only use,
Given the
I wouldn't maybe go that far. unless you
That's what I mean,
really
anyway, there are-
unless you can work in Finnish, I wouldn't go so far that you would use the whole letter. I would just go to the
Translation, you
beginning.
understand, everyone understands.
Or the end. If you have trouble linking yourself, which you shouldn't have to the employer, you can use one of these to impress me, is to at the beginning or the end say something in Finnish. You can say, hyvää päivänjatkoa, or good rest of the day at the end, or yours sincerely, or ystävällisin terveisin. You can use these kind of phrases.
There's a guy in my company and he's the director of one section. He's Irish and then always to any presentation he go, nimeni on Derek Griffney and minä asun Suomessa 8 vuotta, mutta puhun vaan suomea, mutta en voi puhua suomasti.
And how does that go down? Do people
So I puhun
like
suomasti,
it?
then he starts in English.
So my question is also relevant with this. If it's not mentioned clearly, which language is better to apply? It can be English or Finnish. What do you think? In circular, if it's not mentioned clearly that you should have apply in English or Finnish, what do you think? Which language as a foreigner for us?
Well, I think definitely English if you don't speak Finnish. You need to be honest about the fact that you don't speak Finnish, that you're applying in English, and that's the language that you will be working in.
Even though it advertises in Finnish language.
Yeah, even though the advertisement in Finnish language, I can apply in English.
Well, I would still say so because if you don't speak Finnish and if you use Google Translate and if you produce a letter that I read in Finnish and then I believe that you speak Finnish. And then
Yeah,
you come
but
in and you
if
don't.
I write in Finnish, you know that speaking language and written language is totally different. For example, for communicating purpose, maybe perhaps I can communicate with you in Finnish. But when I start to write in Finnish, it will be totally different. So in that case,
Okay.
I don't think so that will be.
I'm gonna also challenge you with one more thing. One of the recruiters from Monster told me a year ago that there's one way of standing out in the Finnish labor market in this process still today. Guess what you have to do then? You have to do a video CV of yourself. Because not many
Very
people do
popular
that
nowadays,
yet.
yeah.
So what you can do is with your smartphone for 1 minute, that's all. Nice background, something that doesn't, you know. And then you film. We actually have, if you go to the Career Services YouTube site, we have technical advice there for how to film a video clip on your smartphone, also in English. You write your pitch, your strengths, and you link yourself to the employer. You kind of do the vocal, a verbal introduction of yourself, and then you read it out. And there you can say something in Finnish then, if you're not maybe so good at writing, but this is where you can then, if you know how to speak it a little bit, you can even do it in Finnish. You can say that, I'm good at speaking, I'm still working on the writing, but this is how I speak. And then you add that link. You can upload it to YouTube or something, and then you add that link, and you send that with the application, so that this is another way of how to profile yourself and how to introduce yourself. You have the CV, the motivation letter, they're very strict, the format, what you can do. The video is more open. You decide there what you say, so that the employer can see you, your mannerisms, how are you as a person. So I encourage you to try it.
Our teacher always appreciated to make a video of CV because it's nowadays getting so popular to
Yes.
write.
And so many times, this is the first step before you even get to an interview. You send an application, they send you a link back, okay, answer these questions. And by the way, if you want to practice this, Tech have got a fantastic app, TEK, this is the Union for Technical People, that anybody can use it. And you can download Tech, and there's loads of fantastic material also in English, where they ask you questions. It's before the interview, during the interview, after the interview. They ask you questions, and then you can record the answer, but you don't send it anywhere. But you can just play it to yourself afterwards, so you can see what you look like and what you sort of sound like. And then they give you good tips for how can you answer this question in a good way. So use the Tech app.
TEK.
TEK. It's called HAASTIS. HAASTIS. I should add this to my material. Tech and haastes is what the app is called. Tekniikan ammattilaiset, professionals in technical fields. They also have a really good website. They do so many good things regarding these issues, so go and have a look at that. They also publish these wage information, for example, that if you need to, because some jobs you have to also have a like what you want for your wages, what kind of salary wish. And Tech also has got some good sort of diagrams there for about salaries.
So when sometimes they ask us in the advertisement that how much do you want from the wages? So how should I calculate around? Sometimes it's a bit confusing.
Well, I always recommend that you should speak to a union about this, because it's all a package with regarding education experience. It depends on how much you have accumulated, how much you should ask for. But about the minimum, so average wage in Finland at the moment is about 3,500. For, and sort of if you have an education and some work experience, this is kind of an average wage.
Is it for master students or graduate students or like?
Right, I would say graduates, when you graduated, yes.
For bachelor's, it's
For bachelor's, it would be lower than that, maybe 2.5. And if we're talking about how we brand ourselves and how we can present ourselves from different perspectives to an employer, CV, motivation letter, video, CV, and then you have social media, which can actually be really effective. How many people would are using social media sort of effectively, actively? I have found well, Facebook for me is something that is private. That's where I do sort of voice my private matters. Twitter, purely professional. LinkedIn, purely professional. But I talk about the same things, but slightly different. I mean, Twitter, you can be faster, you can react faster. If there's something in the news today, according in my field that interests me, I can quickly tweet out something. Or I can tweet now that, hey, I'm now here giving this session to you guys. But in LinkedIn, I would maybe do something, I could do it there too. Many people share it both at the same time, but you get maybe different kind of visibility in both. But they are quite complementary, I think. And Instagram, you can use that also to further your career. But I think definitely, how many has got a LinkedIn? Good.
Questions about LinkedIn. How active do you need to be in order to actually use it as a reference? Because if you have it and you're actually not active, I don't think it's a good thing then.
Well, you can use it for so many different ways. This is what I want to talk about now, how you can use LinkedIn in different ways. Just as we remember that this is a professional channel. This is not where you post private things. And this is where you get information, because when you're not a student anymore, you have to find the information about your field somewhere. You need to know about what's going on. And I find it really difficult, and I don't have the time to search for recent articles or what are the latest conferences in my field. I think LinkedIn is perfect for keeping me up to date with what's going on in my field, and also to get new networks there. And of course to have my own CV there. I think these would be the primary uses for LinkedIn. It's for profiling, because there, in your summary text where you describe yourself, that's another space where you can freely describe who you are and what you're interested in. You're away from the constraints of the motivation letter, because you've tailored that for a certain purpose. Here you can freely talk about yourself. You can profile yourself by liking certain things, by posting certain things, by resharing certain things. And the bigger the network you have, the more visibility you have for your things. For example, if you just graduated with your master's, what happens usually with a master's thesis? they're forgotten about. So why don't we use them more? But you need to take responsibility of taking out the information that you have just spent so long in putting together. So you need to do something with that. Why don't you write something, a short post about your master's thesis topic, for example, and then you share it on LinkedIn. And then imagine that when your network, maybe if you have 200 people, if 50 people like it, then that will also be visible to these 50 people's networks. So there's always the secondary and tertiary network. I posted something a while ago about a conference that I attended, and by this time, over 2,000 people have viewed it, and I don't have 2,000 people in my network. So you can be kind of strategic. What do you want to say? And because it will spread, and you can start making sort of a brand for yourself in your area. People may be starting to contact you because they know that you're a professional, you're an expert, you're somebody that I can ask to come and talk at my event, for example. And of course for job search, and this is where the jobs also move around, because it's LinkedIn, major companies all have, as you know, their LinkedIn pages, and if they know that we have 1,000 people following us, and we need to recruit somebody, well, this is the perfect tool to do it, because these are the people who are following us, and it costs us nothing. Of course, it needs to be really professional. It's good to be able to use the same photograph in all your documents to be consistent, so you can be recognizable. You can take a good photo with your smartphone, but why not also use a professional photo? And today, you can get one done. Your headline, if you say that you're a student at the University of, I'm going to use this Helsinki as an example all the time, but it doesn't really say much. That you need to have the key words again that describe your competencies. We can go into have a look in LinkedIn in a while. Clear and descriptive summary, and of course you need to have an updated profile. You can add all kinds of links. You can add your video CV here to make it more alive, and then you can in your motivation letter say that you can go and have a look at my video CV, which is in my LinkedIn. Then you attract the recruiter to go and have a look at your LinkedIn, because there in your summary, you're also talking about yourself and your future big wishes, and there's the link to your video. So you can kind of use this for strategic purposes. You can add a PDF to your master's, to an article you've written that you're really happy about, to something that you've produced that you want to show. You can add those links. All add to your professional profile. And ask for recommendations, because they show on your profile. You do it through LinkedIn. And share relevant content. Even if you don't feel like posting anything or producing anything yourself, you can always reshare. And that still comes up. That's your activity.
But shall we say something or just reshare it again?
You can, of course, you can comment on it. You can say, I totally agree with this, or this is the really interesting news from my field, or you can comment something before you reshare it.
Can I ask something about that?
Yeah.
Because as a gender studies classes, I'm really critical about a lot of things
Yes.
happening.
Yes?
And I don't really know what is the proper way, like, what am I supposed to say? Because, I mean, like, my studies is really critical, but at the same time, I don't think it's gonna attract a lot of companies to,
Depends on how you are critical. It's difficult for me to say how you use your critical stance. It's hard. Maybe we can have a chat afterwards.
I also have like a question or a comment regarding it, because some people, on social media, almost everybody uses social media.
Yeah.
But some people are more like active or more
Yes.
willing to, put their views out there.
Yes.
But some people are just like some kind of passive user.
Mhm.
So how much does this weigh in, right? I mean, how much is this going to impact?
Of course. The bottom line is that if you don't like to use social media or LinkedIn, don't. This is a tool that you can use for your own benefit. And now we're talking LinkedIn as a professional networking tool. So, yeah, the frequency, it's really hard to say with the frequency, but I think that it's good to be able to show when you're applying for a job that you have a LinkedIn profile, that is up to date, that you have a summary here that talks about you. You don't have to have more than that, but just to have the summary there. Because also some people, employers, are interested in your networks. If you are going to be working for a company that is operating globally, what are your international networks? Do they show you? And you all have them.
Yeah, that was kind of my question, because there's like one part is having the profile, having all the information there,
Yeah.
having people in your network. The other part is, like how much you kind of share and how much you write or something like that. So if you have one, like you have all your information and profile there,
Mhm.
et cetera,
Yeah.
and you don't have that much
It's okay.
interaction,
Yes.
it's fine.
You don't have to have that much interaction, it's just completely up to you. But I just find that the more I've used it, I think I have about 700 people in my network now. I don't know all of them, but some people, the ones who are active, that if I log in once a day, there's again a post from Adriana in Madrid. She's commented something, and she comments regularly. Now, if I would then like to, like I said before, work on a project with an international partner, or if I would like to have advice or something, then I know Adriana there, and she knows her stuff, because she keeps up to date with this, and I'll contact her. Because she has made a name for herself. She has branded herself in LinkedIn by being visible there to her network. I think if that's what you want, then you can really use this. But if you don't wish to do it, then it's okay, you don't have to. Let's go into LinkedIn a bit. Now, of course, this is not my machine, but I'll try to do this. I can find the mouse again. Might need some help. There we go. Can't see the mouse at all. There it is. This is really weird.
Yeah, to the right.
I would just like to close
You
this.
would like to,
Yeah.
And then I'd like to go into, but because it doesn't show. Where is the?
No, just drag it. The which one you want?
I want to go into web browser.
Oh,
Oh, there it is.
so if you do this, it
Then
actually
it
goes there.
okay, now I get it. See? Just a bit slow.
And after opening the browser, it might just drag the browser to the right, then it goes there.
if everybody do the signature, if somebody don't do the signature, just have it, and if you would like to have this presentation, then leave this email address also. So I can send you the email, this presentation later on.
My password. alumni from your field if you would like to contact them. If you go up in the search field there, and I've written down University of Helsinki so many times, it comes up there, but you can do Metropolia or you can do Lappeenranta or whichever. Because then you come into that institution's page and there's kind of 80,000 people here. So that's quite a lot. So if you click on alumni down here, you can then search with keywords. So your field, for example,
Forestry.
forestry. Is it forest science or forestry?
You can write forest science.
So now it will of course then look for everybody who's written forest science in their profiles, and there's 1,700 people here. So what we can do is we can have a look at where are they working. There's a big list here. Then we can also click next, and then we'll find out what they do in these companies and what they actually also study. And then here they are. And the more contacts you have in LinkedIn, the more information you're going to see. If you have under 50, you're not going to see all these people. But you can look and see, okay, so which are the companies? What kind of position are they working in? And if there's somebody there or some position that interests you, you can connect here. You don't have to know them. This is the whole point with LinkedIn, that you increase your professional network. And then they are there. And then you can engage in a conversation. So this is a good way of finding information about your field. But rather than do, I would maybe like to have questions from you, because I don't know how much you use LinkedIn. If you are proficient users already, or do you have any questions now? Yeah.
You mean a question?
Yeah, regarding LinkedIn.
Oh,
I think we use LinkedIn professionally.
You use it professionally?
I use almost every
Okay.
hour.
Right. Yes, you have a question.
Does it make any difference or any effects putting certificates from LinkedIn?
Certificates.
Yeah, from LinkedIn Learning. Because I usually use this courses from LinkedIn Learning.
Yes, well that's good.
From LinkedIn, I give a certificate and I can put it in the LinkedIn profile.
Yes.
It doesn't make sense.
I think that's always good, because if a potential employer doesn't has a look at your profile, then it's nice to see that you've done all this. So I think many times we are very good at hiding our competencies and what we've done, and I think with this kind of portfolio, electronic portfolio, this is where we should collect all these things. I don't have a lot here. I usually use my profile as an example. But I mean, it shows here also then how many people have viewed my post, and here of course my activity shows. I have some certificates here, and I have a blog post here. But then I have and you can use pictures. Some of these pictures are made up, and some of these pictures are real, just to make your profile a little bit more visual, maybe. And I have probably quite a lot here now. I've got too much. Going back to 99 maybe is not necessary, but then again, well, it could be there. And you can always ask your friends to endorse you with skills and endorsements, and to give recommendations. This is how you can build different parts of your profile. And then who you follow here. And of course, if you go up to jobs, then the jobs will appear that are vacant just now in my network. Because I viewed something, then there's something else coming. you updated your career interests? If you're actively searching, then what job titles are you considering? Where do you want it to be located?
And also it's very important to turn that on.
And to turn it on, yeah.
So that
And then if you turn it on, then you can write a note to the recruiters. And supposedly, your current employer won't be able to see this. There's some kind of setting here that you can do this also regardless.
What kind of note I can write here?
That you are actively seeking and, you know, that you're open for especially these things, this what you're interested in the Helsinki region, or you could be more specific maybe about it.
Sorry, so how do you like, if I put something here, means I let this recruiter know that I'm open. So how this recruiter can find me, like,
They have this LinkedIn premium and this in the site.
There's some kind of red bulb that goes off because and they have a way because they use it professionally. So
This LinkedIn premium has now this option.
yes, and I actually have now a free version of premium. I wouldn't maybe pay for it because I don't need to have that. But sometimes they offer you a 3 month a trial. So I'm on a trial just now. But I don't know if it makes any difference if you're not using it actively for job hunting purposes. It doesn't make any difference. You can just use the free version. But yeah, so that's I think this is important.
They also regularly search by the keyword, the same keyword they use. Like let's say my field is like animal nutrition. So they put the keyword animal nutrition plus PhD. They will get all this expert in the list.
Yeah, of course, 'cause I mean, LinkedIn is all about keywords. What words are you using in your summary? Because if I'm a recruiter, I'm feeding in keywords. This is the person I'm looking for. Where's the match?
And there are sometimes we find some notification about you are found in different searches, like 10 searches
Yeah.
this day or
Yeah, this kind of
Even though it's a bit of a mystery how it really works, because I get being offered positions in Nestle. And it's like, what would I do in Nestle? So I don't really know.
Oh, some
how-
keyword message like let's
Yes, I
say
must have something there that's.
keyword. So you can shorten it down. Like if you have many keywords, and you have you randomly go to someone.
But I haven't been thinking so far as I am not sort of actively looking for a job.
This is
But, there's a lot you can do here. We're going to have, by the way, in is it the 7th of November, I think, on a Thursday, where we're going to have a LinkedIn workshop in the city center, and we actually have invited Fiona Mackey, who works for LinkedIn in Stockholm. So she's going to be over, and she's going to have a training session for students about LinkedIn. So this is, sorry?
Do we need to register for that?
You probably will do, yes. We haven't yet published the Facebook events, but we will do it very soon. So follow us on Facebook and Instagram, then you will get information. You will have to get registered, because she was here also some time ago, and it was very busy. Because it's a very good opportunity to hear from the source itself, how they work, and for you to ask them questions. So
It will be
welcome.
in November.
It will be on the 7th of November, if I remember correctly. So keep looking at our site. It will be a LinkedIn workshop by LinkedIn. But I think we are running out of time. I hope that you got something out of this. And I'll stay here if somebody has got any questions.
Yes, there is many hands.
Yeah.
Are you thinking about when you like a little bit about the job that you had in the past? Is it always better to write it text, or can you just put it into like keywords or?
You can use keywords too. Yeah. It's of course a bit clearer if you just have keywords. Yeah.
like, how would you like connect an unknown person? Like, should we send before a message or something?
Good point. Yes. So when you then go into the press connect, you know, the box comes up to say that would you like to send a message, a customized message, then it is etiquette to write something there if you don't know this person. For example, you could say that hello, I would like to be part of your network because we are professionals in the same field, or I heard you speak at a seminar last week, that's why I know you, or something. And just a few lines, that's enough. It's nice to do that.
Could you also like ask about our links, means about the job created for the message?
If we're talking about networking, what's the most important thing in networking? What's the question that should be number one when we network? It's not, do you have a job for me?
It's the professional things there.
It's, what can I do for you? How do we help each other out? And the job thing comes at some point later in a different format, but when we network professionally, we should do it with the thought that we are just helping each other out in this network. So what can I do for you? Because if I do something for you now, then you know, it's mutual at some point. It will be vice versa.
And of course, you have to show the interest what they are doing.
Yes. You can flatter. You can
Yes.
say that I really like your paper that you presented last week. Or that I find that.
But
you
really,
sound
read it
interesting.
first. But you have to read it first really, and then you say.
Of course. Of course, but being generally nice and offering your help is always the good way to start. Yeah. And then the job seeking will kind of come with it.
We actually offer workshops how to like do small talk on the business level.
Well, we have in Kumpula on the 21st of November, I'm sure that is open for everybody in English, this kind of personal branding with regards to, before the networking event, that when you go and speak to employers, what do you say? The elevator speech, basically, this is what we do.
And it's going to be in Kumpula.
It's going to be in Kumpula, but you're all welcome to it on the 21st of November, and we still haven't gone out with that information either. Our communications person is sick, so we have a lot of communication that we need to do soon. But the 21st is a Thursday, and it's going to be an afternoon, probably at 4 o'clock.
Register for that?
Yes, we will have to register for that, just so that we know approximately how many people are coming. If you forget, it's okay, you can still turn up. But basically what you do there is you write your elevator pitch, you practice it first on each other, and then we will have hopefully some either HR people there or some people from certain industries, alumni who will come and also listen to your pitch, who can then give you feedback. How did it sound, the presentation of yourself?
That's for each student.
Sorry?
That's for each student or for anyone in the university?
I would think that this could be for anybody. I mean, this is on the Kumpula campus,
Yeah.
targeted for the ICT people and for the networking event, but I don't see why you couldn't come. Don't think we have any events that are closed. We want to be more inclusive.
I get an idea. I can go there and do the elevator speech and video that at once. So that could be the.
That's a good idea. When it's fresh in your mind and you just received feedback
Yeah.
from an HR professional about it, that's the time to do the video.
Yes. Right, yeah. Let's learn and do it at once. Why not?
Very good idea.
Okay, one more question.
Yes?
Okay, what about the picture about CV as well as thing as well as LinkedIn?
Yes.
Like, should it be like too professional or what kinds of picture should we put?
Okay. Professional, I would say, just means just wear a shirt rather than a t-shirt. You are allowed to smile rather than looking scared. Smile, shirt, comb your hair, nice background. Just business casual. You don't have to be too between casual and the passport photos.
We're sometimes confused about these things, like, should we put like the tie or not? Yes, with business casual.
Again, it depends on where you are applying, but imagine what do the people look like who go there for work every day? I know if you're applying to Rovio, would you wear a hoodie at the top? With a bird on? They are not very formal there. But I think generally, I think it's good to stick to a certain formal line though. Shirt, tie is good, but at least a shirt that's kind of buttoned up and that. I've seen some crazy photos. So I'm sure people wouldn't do that, so sit there and find,
Photos from the beach.
wear sunglasses. Because it does happen, I'm afraid.
Is there any more questions? Then I would like to ask Anna for your nice presentation, and let's have a big clap for